How's everybody doing? This is West 'em Up. It's a armchair All-American AFC West podcast. My name's Milo Hay. I'm coming from Denver, Colorado.
My name is Cade Campbell. I'm coming from Seattle, Washington.
And we're just here to give you reviews from Week 8, some previews for Week 9, and then also any relevant news in the AFC West. There was a good portion of news surrounding most of the teams in the AFC West this week. What do you got for us, Cade?
So some news coming out of the AFC West this week. The big one is in Denver, Colorado. Trevor Siemian has been benched by the coach out there, and they're decided to put Brock Osweiler in the starting role instead of Paxton Lynch. I know you're a big Broncos fan. Milo, what's your interpretation about this?
So I never really was high on Brock Osweiler. I never have been, but I'm not high on Paxton Lynch either. So, I thought Simeon could get the job done, and he just looks like he's scared back there in the pocket, and a lot of times, in bad situations. So it's a good move, but really this week they play the NFL leading Philadelphia Eagles, and it's going to take a lot for these guys to really come through. And the biggest person that we're going to have to watch that game is going to be Brock Osweiler and how he fares in his first NFL start this season.
Yeah, I think it's a great move by the Denver organization to put Brock Osweiler in there instead of Paxton Lynch. Brock Osweiler just has more, he has more game situations. He has more experience in the starting quarterback position rather than Paxton Lynch. But, I think he did great last year. I think a lot of people give him not a lot of credit for playing in Houston, but they actually went to the playoffs and actually won a game in the playoffs. So, it's definitely the best decision for them at this time. You look at Trevor Siemian's regular season stats as well. He has 1,600 yards, 9 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. And, that's just average for a quarterback in this league. So I think it's a perfect time to bring someone else in to that role and see what else they can do.
Yeah, no, and he'll, Brock Osweiler, he's going to get some help this week. There's a possibility that Emmanuel Sanders will be back this week, so that helps out plenty right there. And it really is just going to be coming down to how Brock, orchestrates his offense and how he can, get the ball out of his hands. The offensive line struggled somewhat here and there. The receivers have dropped some crucial balls, and the running backs have had some fumbles. So really, if they can bring all that together, you're looking at the Broncos possibly upsetting Philly, which I know is a long shot. It's like just over 70% to 29% for what people are giving Broncos the odds for. But if they bring it all together and Osweiler has a great game and doesn't turn the ball over, I can see them having a pretty decent performance.
Yeah, like you said, Emmanuel Sanders coming back, and that's just going to free up the wide receivers even more, especially Demaryius Thomas. When you have a sidekick like Sanders, he's always going to have open options down the field. And yeah, I'm not sure which week he went down, Emmanuel Sanders, but ever since he has, it just seemed like that offense hasn't been rolling as much. And it's going to be good to see him back and, given a chance for the Broncos going up against, I think, a league's best Philadelphia Eagles team. They're 7-1. They're just on a high roll right now. So I could see this being an upset alert as well, but it's only going to go as good as Brock Osweiler in this offense is going to play, because their defense is coming. They're still ranked number 1 in the league. So we'll see this Sunday.
Oh, yeah, the defense is on point. The one thing they have struggled with this year has just been simply creating turnovers, and that's a big part of the game. When your offense is giving up a lot of turnovers, you're not going to win games if you can't, equally create those turnovers on defense. But the defense has just been playing well. The one key thing I want to bring out is, and we'll dive in more into depth about this later, but just after having a hard week against Travis Kelce, they'll be facing off against another elite tight end in Zach Ertz.
Zach Ertz, yeah, he is a monster. I swear he's been in Philly for as long as I can remember. and he's always been a clutch tight end there, making big plays. And yeah, this Phillies team has just been on a roll. I'm forgetting their quarterback's name right now off the top of my head.
Oh, Carson Wentz.
Carson Wentz, yeah. He's just been on a roll this year. You know, he kind of fell off last season towards the end, but he came back and put in the work. And they got that Jay Ajayi from the Miami Dolphins. So it's going to be weird seeing him in the backfield, and it's going to be exciting to see what this Phillies team can do on offense with that addition.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's gonna, and then it's gonna be in Philly, so it's gonna be a tough game for the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, and like we were talking about, they just have to bring out their A game on offense, even a B game of work with as well as their defense has been. So, yeah, we'll hop on to our next news. The Kansas City Chiefs had a pretty quiet week, and so did the Chargers as well. Chargers will be on the bye week this week. But what do you have for us from Oakland?
From Oakland, pretty quiet week as well. There was no big trades with any of these teams in the AFC West, with the trade deadline coming to a close this week. But Marshawn Lynch is coming back after his 1-game suspension. The Raiders missed out on him in Buffalo. And what's your opinion on him coming back, and will he make a difference? Because the Raiders' rushing game struggled in Buffalo. So what's your opinions on that matter, Milo?
Well, they really do need Marshawn back. Like you said, their rushing game just seems to struggle whenever he's not in the game. And even when he struggles, it seems like the offense struggles. So you consider, I mean, they're 3-5. It's a must-win game this week. They play the Dolphins, and then they go on to play the Patriots. So, and then, right after that, they'll face the Broncos again. So, really, they need to get something going these next 3 weeks. And, with the hardest game probably being Patriots and Broncos, they need to at least try to get back to 500 if they're really in contention for a playoff spot.
Yeah, it's a big week this week coming up against the Dolphins. And like you said, their struggle when Marshawn's struggling or when he's not there. And you could totally see it this last week with those backup running backs causing the fumbles and all that stuff, but we'll get into that later. But it's a must-win for them, and I believe they have a bye week coming up next week. So I think this is a perfect opportunity for them to, maybe get I don't want to say an easy win. I'm not sure of let's just look at so yeah, the Raiders are actually favored in this 53-46. So I don't want to say easy win, but if they can get this win and then go into the bye week, it would be ideal for them. And Marshawn Lynch should be a big part of that, bringing some rushing and opening up the play action for Derek Carr.
Yeah, they'll need his presence there. A hard runner, great guy. When he's on the field, obviously you're going to want to key in on him on defense. So opens up just a lot of stuff. And that's pretty much what happened in that surprising win that they had against Kansas City 2 weeks back. They just had Marshawn on the field. When he did leave, I would say the Chiefs got a little comfortable and, thinking, oh, well, we'll just cover the pass. Well, that's when Derek Carr started eating them up. And then when they started rushing again, that's when the running game could come. So even Marshawn playing that little portion of the game really affected the outcome.
Yeah, he is always going to have eyes on him wherever he is on the field because, I know everybody remembers that beast mode run in the playoffs when he was in Seattle against the Saints. And so ever since that, this man can just break off at any time. So, he always has those eyes on him, on the opponent. The opponent always has their eyes on him. But some more news coming out of the AFC West, which really isn't in the AFC West, but it's actually coming out of Dallas Cowboys, who play an AFC West team this week, the Chiefs. Ezekiel Elliott, he has no chance to delay his 6-game suspension for what he has going on in the law right now, and he won't be here this Sunday. And he actually won't play against the Chargers, and he'll actually come back against the Raiders December 17th. What do you think this will have effect on this game?
So surprisingly, I was looking at some of the stats and analytics of the chart or Cowboys and Chiefs game going on this weekend, and the Cowboys are actually favored to win it. And I don't know if that's just because Dallas is that big city and this and that, but without Ezekiel Elliott, that takes a lot off their offense, so it puts a lot of pressure on Dak Prescott. And the Chiefs defense has showed us throughout the season that they play well enough. Their offense plays excellent, which is what's keeping them afloat, but their defense plays well enough to get through games. So without Ezekiel Elliott in this lineup, things might be a little bit easier for the Chiefs. And then coming up when they play the Chargers, you're looking at, a team that is sack happy in the Chargers that will get to Dak Prescott. And you're looking at Melvin Gordon just running up. So, I could honestly see Dallas losing at least one of those two games against AFC West opponents until they get back against the Raiders.
Yeah, ever since Ezekiel Elliott, came in the league, he has just ran over every single team, it seems like, with the Dallas Cowboys. And I think he makes Dak Prescott even that much better. And you see the numbers, Dallas Cowboys are second in the league in rushing. And that's, all because Ezekiel Elliott and, the line they have down there in Dallas. But you look at their passing and they're 17th in passing. So, it's going to, when you take away a second best rushing team in the league, you have to rely on your passing, and, they're in the bottom half of the league in passing. So it's only going to put more pressure on Dak Prescott. So I can definitely see them losing one of those two games. And I think the Chiefs this week have it that much easier.
Yeah. So, that'll be an interesting matchup to watch. And obviously for any NFL fan, just to check in on the Cowboys for the 6 weeks to see how they do. The Cowboys, I believe, standing wise, I think they're 4-3 or 3-4, 4-3 right now. So you look at it, they're 2.5 games back from Philadelphia, so they have a lot of climbing to do to get to a playoff spot so far. Looking at it now, they probably might make a playoff spot still, but it's going to be a tough challenge without having Zeke for 6 weeks.
Yeah, and I'm kind of confused, like what you said about the matchup this week. The Dallas is favored 58-41, like you said earlier, and without Ezekiel Elliott, you think the Chiefs would have a better chance. But the Chiefs. This game, it's going to be a great game. The Cowboys have been lackluster sometimes this year, but they're going to fight because down by 2 games, and everybody's expecting them to make the playoffs. So they're going to come out guns hot, but I still favor the Chiefs.
Yeah, and one more thing, us talking about the Chiefs, I totally forgot about this today, but Tamba Hali, linebacker from the Chiefs, he's actually making a pretty well recovery right now. He didn't start this season. He hasn't played a game yet because he's had sore knees. Been going through a lot of injuries. So he actually might be able to come back. I'm not positive if it's this week, but here pretty soon. So, if he does come back this week, that just frees up plenty of stuff for, the other Houston and Johnson in the linebacker core to get to Dak Prescott and put pressure on him. So we can honestly see the game go either way. But like you said, it is a little bit confusing that the analysts would say the Cowboys have more of a chance to win this game.
Yeah, and the Kansas City needs all the help on defense that they can get. Chiefs are ranked 30th in the league in defense, and then on offense they're ranked 2nd, or 3rd, I believe. My bad. So they need all the help they need on defense because this offense is just carrying their team right now. Even though I think their defense did play good against the Broncos, they're gonna need to have a good defense against the Cowboys because Dak Prescott is the truth. Even with Ezekiel Elliott, I think a running back would run still good under that line, but it's going to be a great game.
Yeah, so I mean, we pretty much did our preview for that game already, but yeah, it will be a great game, and it's down in Dallas, so uh, away game for the Chiefs. They just finished. They're kind of starting a 2-game road trip. They'll be heading up to New York to face the Giants next, and then heading back home to face the Jets. But uh, in this game, it's important for them to step up on defense and just make sure that they can take the receivers out of the game. Don't let backup running backs, catch you off guard. Uh, don't let their defense get inside your head and make plays on Alex Smith. And, they really have to establish Kareem Hunt again, who didn't, go over 100 yards total against the Broncos last week. So if they can do all of that, they can easily get a victory.
Oh yeah, I can totally see them getting a victory because I honestly still think they're the best team in the NFL just because of that offense and Andy Reid and all them weapons they have. But I mean, we can smoothly transition into the Denver Bronco and Kansas City Chiefs game this last week. It was somewhat underwhelming game for the Broncos, but another dominant Kansas City Chiefs game on offense. What's your opinions on it, Milo?
Oh man, that was a heartbreaking game to watch. Just knowing that if we didn't turn the ball over 5 times, if the Denver Broncos didn't turn over the ball 5 times, that game was in their pocket to win. That they would have bridged the gap a little bit more in between them and Kansas City for the divisional lead, and it just was really a poor performance from Trevor Siemian. He, like I said earlier, he looked scared. He looked like he was just rushing decisions. He did come out and say afterwards that he was trying to make stuff happen, but you got to take that to a certain point. I can understand if you're down by 6 points or a touchdown at the end of the game, and you're just trying to like throw the ball downfield, make some stuff happen. But I just felt like he was really in a rush, and he just wasn't comfortable the whole night. And it all stems to, I've been kind of telling everybody I know these issues have been here for a long time. So if you have a guy like Peyton Manning on your team, teams are worried about how well he throws, so they're not going to rush as much, and he audibles out of it. Well, Trevor Siemian is not Peyton Manning, and not even anywhere close to that. So their teams are going to blitz him, and they know that he's fragile and that he is a little bit scared of when a good defensive end or linebacker or defensive tackle comes in. So they're going to attack him the whole game.
Yeah, you make a great point with the Peyton Manning and Trevor Siemian comparison that, teams aren't going to rush Peyton Manning. They're going to worry about his passing. But Trevor Siemian, we know he needs the play action. He works best in the play action. He performs the best, and he looks way more comfortable in that rather than in the shotgun or force and throws. Because you can see his numbers this week. He got basically 200 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. And those interceptions weren't just, tips or nothing. It was just bad throws. And, I commented on Twitter about this. It was that he just is at the lowest point of confidence that I've seen this season with him. And it's showing for sure. But I think the game started off it just started off so good for Kansas City. They were just on fire. The Broncos were lucky it wasn't 21-0 before they scored that field goal because they were just clicking. Alex Smith was clicking with Travis Kelce. I think they picked 6 Trevor Siemian for the first touchdown.
Well, matter of fact, the first touchdown, it was Jamal Charles. Remember, he fumbled the ball,
yes,
and Marcus Peter ran it all the way back. And that was one thing that kind of irked me a little bit is Jamal Charles, his first game back in Kansas City, well, he was tearing it up at the beginning of the game. I mean, he had like 3 rushes for like 30 yards, so he had some good averages, but he fumbled the ball. And right after that, it was like Coach Vance Joseph just shut him out the game and minimized his reps. And to me, that defines a team and it defines a player. You look back to Kareem Hunt, week 1, fumble on the first carry, his first career carry, comes back, burns the Patriots for, over 200, 300 yards, whatever it was. And and a couple touchdowns. And so, I mean, it really goes to show you that I guess the coaching staff just didn't have faith to put Jamal Charles back in the game as much as they should have.
Yeah, I was going to bring up the same point. Like, this guy was breaking off for, I think he had a long 18 run in that first quarter, and then he gets the fumble, and I never see him again. They bring Devontae Booker in, and I mean, he got the touchdown later in the game. He had 6 carries for 40 yards. Didn't do too bad, but that just kills a player's confidence when you just take him out after he not only fumbles, but the defense returns it for a touchdown. So I'm kind of curious to why they did that, and just curious on if he's going to play against the Eagles or not. But this game was just dominated by Kansas City. You look at the stats, possession, nothing really too fancy there. It's kind of the same, but Denver had 31 and Kansas City had 28, but it's just the turnovers, like you said earlier.
Yeah, I was just about to bring up the stats. I mean, you look at the stats, and Denver, 364 yards on offense. Kansas City, only 276. Denver, 23 first downs. Kansas City, 16. Possession was almost even. But then, like you said, Kansas City, 2 turnovers. Denver, 5 turnovers, so +3. You're not going to win games if you keep turning the ball over. That game was in the bag for them, and that was a game that just was blown really bad by the coaching staff and by Trevor Siemian and the offense as well.
Yeah, I remember at a point it was, 17-10. I think it was in like the start of the third or something, or the end of the second, and it was like, man, how are the Broncos still in this game? Because it just seems like the Chiefs are just handing them like possessions after possessions. And once if you don't capitalize on those, possessions that the other team hands to you, a team against Kansas City is gonna, take that, and they're just gonna continue to score, and that's what they did. But yeah, it just Simeon, just to me, is I want him to succeed because he's a great guy. He never always takes the fault on himself, and I thought he looked great during the middle of the season, but it's just sad to see him go to the bench and then have Osweiler come in, because I think this team can be a playoff team. It's just their offense is lacking right now.
Yeah, and it all goes to fixing that offensive line, and health obviously is a big thing, but they've really kind of struggled at tight end as well, and that's something I noticed recently. It's just you look at a lot of quarterbacks around the league, they want to use their tight end. That tight end is the guy that gets into the seam and just is open and gets over the shorter safeties or whatnot. And the Broncos just haven't had that. And then when they do have, say, for instance, good game running or a good game receiving, they just find some way this season to really blow games. I mean, you look back and with the exception of the Cowboys game, that was the only game they truly, truly won, like dominated in. Other games, Chargers, they won by 3 week 1. Bills, they lost by 10. Raiders, they won by 6. Giants, they lost by 13. Chargers, they were shut out 21-0. And then they lost by 10 last week. So Denver has to find some answers here quick. And one thing I'll bring up, just being a guy that watches the Broncos all the time and observes them, is that Denver truly has a roster full of backup quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And the only person we haven't got to see yet is Chad Kelly, who, by the way, returned to practice this week. The Broncos actually had 4 quarterbacks practicing this week. But, if the Broncos season keeps going down south, look for them to throw in Chad Kelly and see what he does.
Yeah, Chad Kelly is an excellent option if, they keep on losing games. But it's also, you keep on losing games, you're going to get a high draft pick. And what's better than a high draft pick, like getting a quarterback, with that draft pick. And that's exactly what the Broncos need next season, to find that quarterback that can take this team up to the next level. But, you also got to give kudos to this defense, because this defense is just, a monster. And it's what kept them in this game, stopping Kansas City and just having them kick field goals. And I mean, you got to give credit to Harrison Butker, the Kansas City Chiefs kicker, going 5 for 5, getting 17 points overall with the extra points. But yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say Harrison Butker. He looked excellent, and I believe the only field goal he missed what happened to be his first field goal attempt for the Chiefs. And so, I mean, since then he's gone, I believe, 18 for 18. So, I mean, you look at this guy and he's just on fire. And that was one thing is the 5 turnovers didn't necessarily lead to like a dominant game by the Chiefs. It led to points for the Chiefs. And, like whether it was a fumble for the touchdown, interception, another interception, another fumble, it just put Kansas City in good field position to keep kicking those field goals and bridge the gap. Or, I mean, I should say expand the gap a little bit on what the score was. I mean, you're talking if Denver would have got rid of at least 2 of those turnovers, the game might have finished off at like 21-19 instead, or even 3 turnovers, Denver might have won that game.
Exactly. Like, I mean, the defense just stops KC and just has them kick field goals. Your offense got to produce and get 7 points on the board, and it was just Trevor Siemian would have a great drive, and then he would go down for 3 drives, and then he would have another good drive, and it's just this inconsistency that Denver has. But you got Kansas City on the other hand has been doing great, and even though they had a bad rushing day that we mentioned earlier in the podcast, Kareem Hunt 22 carries, 46 yards. Alex Smith still does his job, getting 202 yards and even just 1 touchdown. But this Kansas City team just finds a way to win, and their defense, I think, surprisingly did well. I know they're ranked 30th in the league, but they end up with 3 sacks, 4 tackles for loss, and you got to give credit where credit's deserved.
Yeah, and bringing up that point, it was in my preview article for the game last week, but I mentioned Justin Houston, and Justin Houston, I believe, after the game last week, he has it's somewhere between 10 and 12 sacks against the Broncos in like the past 6 games. Mm-hmm. So I mean, you're looking at there's something wrong there. If they can't stop this guy, they're not keying on him. It's the same with Travis Kelce. He's burned the Broncos the past couple games, and it's just something that they need to focus on more when they get prepared for these games. Enough with the Broncos and their heartbreaking season going on here. We already just pretty much went through the Chiefs and Cowboys. How do you feel about this Eagles game? I mean, like, what are your general feelings about it?
General feelings about the Eagles game is it's going to be a tough game for Denver. You have Brock Osweiler making his first appearance in the NFL this season, and this team's just been struggling on offense for the past couple weeks. I really would like to see them get their rushing game going. I know they had 177 rushing yards last week, but maybe more consistently on drives, have them, have CJ Anderson dominate a series, or Jamal Charles come in and dominate a series like they were doing in the first couple games of the season. But I want to say the Eagles, they're looking like, they're a top 3 team in the league right now, and this offense is looking deadly. They're in Philly. It's always a tough place to play. So I say that the Eagles are going to take this one.
Nice. I think I probably was the only one, just because I'm biased and I'm the Broncos writer, to pick the Broncos to win by 2. But I feel the same way. It's going to be a tough day. They need to make sure they key in on Zach Ertz. You got Ajayi who's coming over. It's going to be a little confusing to see how him and Blunt share reps, but you can't count out Carson Wentz. That guy, he's just been playing lights out this year, and if he doesn't win league MVP, I mean, at least he has my vote for the first half of the season between him and Alex Smith. But if one of those 2 guys doesn't win MVP, it's just going to be a shocker. But it's just going to be one of those games that you're just going to have to watch. It could go it's probably obviously going to be in favor of Philadelphia for more and more people that watch the game, but it could be a surprise result for everybody.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can't count any team out in the NFL, because it can go either way at any given day. But I mean, with Emmanuel Sanders coming back and then, a new quarterback, fresh energy for the Denver Broncos, and maybe Brock Osweiler comes back and does his magic that comes out of him every once and so often. So I think this game can go either way. Denver Broncos, it could be an upset alert for sure. That defense can be dominant, but we're just gonna have to see Sunday.
Definitely. So yeah, we'll jump on to our next game. We'll talk obviously a little bit about the Chargers and what they got going on. But we got the Oakland Raiders. I mean, so last week they lost a heartbreaker. They started out kind of well against the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo, but they ended up getting their butts whooped, 34-14. What were your thoughts while you were watching that game? I know you're an Oakland fan, so what were your thoughts?
Man, it's the same thoughts you were having when you were watching the Broncos, Milo. It's just like, it's underwhelming, and it's just like, it sucks watching it, because I mean, you see this team, you see them come out, score 7 points right off the bat, and like after the great game against the Chiefs, it's like, man, this team's back. With the team like how it was last year, they score fast and they just look dominant on offense. But then like the defense comes out, and then the Buffalo Bills, who I underestimated, honestly, because I thought their offense looked great. I wouldn't say they're a top tier offense, but they look great. But that defense looked just unbelievable against the Raiders. I mean, they had 4 turnovers, and to the Raiders 0 turnovers, and it was a dominant performance by the Bills, and it was what we've accustomed to see the Raiders' performance this year. That's what we saw this last week.
Yeah, and bringing up your point about their 4 turnovers, this game pretty much mimicked that of the Broncos game. Oakland obviously had 4 turnovers. Buffalo did turn the ball over once. Oakland had 23 first downs, Buffalo 17. Oakland, they lost the time of possession battle. They only had 24 minutes. Buffalo had 35. But then total yards, Oakland beat out Buffalo 367-331. So it really goes to show you that if you keep turning the ball over, you're not going to win games, and that's something they struggled at. And for Derek Carr, he had an exceptional game. He actually was 31 for 49, 313 yards, 1 touchdown, but he had those 2 picks, and those 2 picks really made a big difference in this game.
Yeah, they really did. I mean, I think the turnovers, the 3 of them came in like back-to-back series, and it just totally took the wind out of the Raiders, all their mojo from the first quarter. And, they were playing behind basically the whole game. But I want to bring up the rushing yards too, because Buffalo Bills, you have LaShawn McCoy, who goes for 27 carries, 151 yards. And then the leading rusher for the Raiders is DeAndre Washington, 6 carries, 26 yards. So I think the big thing about this game was just how Buffalo was able to keep the ball, and like you see in the time of possession, and that's what you're going to get when you run the ball that good. And the defense looked like it struggled against the Buffalo Bills. I mean, Navarro Bowman, 7 tackles, but it was just open lanes all day.
Yeah, and one thing I want to point out too about the rushing is look at the attempts. So with Buffalo, Tyrod Taylor, he threw the ball 27 times. You got Derek Carr, who threw it 49 times. So going back to the rushing, Buffalo rushed for 37 times total for 166 yards, 4.5 average. You look at the other side, and Oakland only rushed the ball 14 times for 54 yards, had a 3.9 average. The one reason why I bring this up is because you look at DeAndre Washington, didn't have a horrible day by any means. 6 carries, 26 yards, 4.3 carries. So to me, it seemed like the coaching staff just got off of the run game really quick. I mean, they really didn't fall into a hole that quick, but they just abandoned the run completely throughout the game and just minimized it. So putting the pressure on Derek Carr all the time is not the way to go. I mean, the guy is an excellent quarterback, but at the end of the day, he can't do everything for a team that has struggled on defense and has some offensive woes going on.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like they did lean away from the run too soon, and maybe that's because Marshawn Lynch wasn't there, or they just feel comfortable that they can just give it to Derek Carr and he can make a play like he did against the Chiefs. But that the performance against the Chiefs isn't going to happen every week. Like, people are going to know that you're going to pass, especially if that's where you're best at. Even that they're 11th in the league in passing and 25th in rushing. So they need to find out something again for this rushing. I don't think they've gone. A single rusher has gone over 100 yards. A single player has gone over 100 yards this year for the Raiders. And you think about to last year where they had Latavius Murray, they had DeAndre Washington and Jalen Richard. They were running all over guys, and that opened up their passing game with Derek Carr going play action. So it's halfway through the season, and as of right now, every game has to be a must win for these guys if they want to get to the playoffs like everybody thought they would.
Yeah, and getting into what's going on next for them is they head down to Miami to play against the Dolphins, and Dolphins have had some struggles here and there, but they have a better record, 4-3, at 2-1 at home, and the Raiders are 1-3 away. So I want to get your thoughts on this game, and how do you feel
about this game? I think the Raiders will end up winning. It might just be my biased opinion, but I don't know what's going on in Miami. They give away Ajayi for, kind of basically nothing. And then, he's their leading rusher. I think Jay Cutler's still out on injury. I don't know if he's coming back this week, but it just seems like this team doesn't want to win or something like that. But I know they're going all the way to Miami. They've been struggling this year on the road, as you saw last week against Buffalo. But I think the Raiders do pull it out, and I think go into their bye week, with a win, because that's what they really need to, go looking forward onto the season. How about you?
So I totally agree with you. It is crazy. I mean, Jay Ajayi, he got traded to the Eagles for a 4th round pick.
Yeah,
that is insane. I mean, like if any other team knew he was going to get traded for a pick that was that low, exactly. I'm pretty sure they would have went for him. But like you said, it just seems like they just don't have it going on down there. I guess I'm reading right now that Jay Cutler is expected to return. So really for the Raiders, they're going to have to key in on Jarvis Landry. That'll be a big thing. But with the lack of run game there now, they'll have some opportunity to rush Jay Cutler, get in his head, and affect the game. So it's going to be a tough one. It's going to be a close one, I think. We'll just have to sit back and wait and see who will benefit most from, what's going on. Whether, I was just looking at some of the stats, and the Dolphins, for instance, they allow 95.4 yards per game rushing. So they're not really giving up a lot of yards a game. They actually give up less yards a game than the Raiders do. Mm-hmm. Offensively, though, the Dolphins struggle, and they are only averaging 270 yards a game, and while the Raiders are averaging 328 pretty much a game.
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to that rushing. If the Raiders can get that going, and Derek Carr has to show up. He has to show up every week if the rushing is going to be like that. But I think it works in the Raiders' favor because the Miami Dolphins giving away Jay Ajayi. The Raiders are ranked 27th, and you can easily run on this team like you saw LaShawn McCoy do, and seen multiple teams do these past few weeks. And I think there's stuff going on in Miami, and there's stuff going on the Raiders too. But like you said, I think it's going to be a close game, and the Raiders win by a field goal or something.
Oh, that's true. Sorry, just get it back on a text message. But yeah, so They both teams have a lot going on for them. Both teams, with the Dolphins missing Ryan Tannehill and then obviously trading away their star running back, that's a shocker for the season. And then the Raiders, I mean, this was a team that we all probably thought should have been, I would say, if anything, 6-2 right now. This is a must-win game for the Raiders. They're 3-5 right now, and they're 2 games back from actually 3 games back. 3 games back from Kansas City. So they really need to win this game just so they can get back in the playoff picture. If any team can do it, it would be the Raiders with as good as their offense potentially is. They just need to get their defense on board and start getting to the quarterback, start stopping other teams. This is a good kind of test game for them to really get things back in gear.
Yeah, I think it's great. It's a great test game for them, and then the bye week after that, if they can go into that with a win, they can get their minds right, because right after the bye week, like you said, the Patriots are coming, and you can't keep losing games when you're 3-5, trying 3 games away from first place in your division. So there's going to be some big games coming up, so they got to get their mind right for that.
Yeah, and you speaking about them coming back after the Dolphins game to face the Patriots. I mean, look at the rest of their schedule. So after the Dolphins, they have their bye week. They come back and face the Patriots. The week after, they go against the Broncos. Then they have the New York Giants, who obviously are their easiest game of the rest of their schedule. But then they go on to face the Chiefs again. They face the Cowboys. They face the Eagles, and then they face the Chargers to close out the season. Ooh. So that is a tough stretch of games. I mean, you pretty much Dolphins are above 500, Patriots are above 500, Broncos are 1 game below. Giants, obviously, we know their season is toast. Kansas City is the division leader. Cowboys are barely under 500. Eagles are one of the best teams in the league, and then the Chargers surprisingly are on a hot streak, and we'll get to that here in a second. But it's a tough schedule for them, so they need to come with their best game. Jack Del Rio just needs to start pushing his players more, and as a guy here in Denver that's experienced, Jack Del Rio, he definitely is a coach that could push his team to perform better. Yeah, I mean, he definitely talks the talk, and he's definitely walked the walk in the NFL, coaching some great teams in the past. And I'm not sure. It might be on the offensive coordinator. I'm not sure. I don't really want to put blame on anybody, but you get rid of the offensive coordinator from last year that ended up having the 6th best offense in the league, and now you looking at the 14th best offense in the league, and it's frustrating as a Raiders fan to see them, but they have to get their mind right if they want to make the playoffs this coming up weekend. Beating the Dolphins is number 1, and then getting to that bye week to go through that long stretch that you just brought up of tough teams, because we don't want to be 4-12 again. I don't want to go back to those days, man. I'm scared of those days. So we'll see. And we do make fun of it here in Denver. Obviously, whether you're a Raiders fan out there in the Bay or anywhere, you're gonna pick on the Broncos. Same with the Broncos fans. But since the Rich Gannon days, back when you guys lost the Super Bowl against Tampa Bay, we've always made fun of you guys since, and we've had some heartbreakers here. What was his name? Was it Washington that blocked that late field goal in the snow? Oh, yeah. Yeah, and there's been some back and forth, but to see the Raiders dominate last year, it was a scary feeling for us here in Denver. We were like, oh no, this team has really gotten good over the years, and where did this come from? And now to see them struggling again, it's just kind of like, whoa, what happened? I mean, good for us, but wow, what's happening? So, as a football fan, I definitely would like to see the Raiders perform a lot better. They definitely can. On paper, at least, they just need to put it all together. Yeah, it's, I used to walk around and say I'm a Raiders fan, and everybody just said, man, I'm sorry for you, Cade. And it's like,
Yeah, and then like last year happened, and I was just in shock, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And then to finally have like good expectations for a season, this season right now that we're talking about, and then to go 3-5 in the first half, it's heartbreaking. But this we like you said, this offense has the potential to be a league best, and you don't know what can happen in the second half of the season.
Yeah, so I mean, it's going to be a good game to watch. So I mean, keep your eyes on that game. We might get a glimpse of the old Raiders from last year. So keep your eyes on that if you're a Raiders fan or if you just want to see a good game played. So let's jump now to the Los Angeles Chargers. To recap, last week they lost. They lost a good game. It was a really good game against the New England Patriots, with the exception of like Phillip Rivers. He had one interception, but he did also throw a touchdown. Melvin Gordon, 14 carries for 132 yards. This guy's a beast. But, throughout that game, you look at it and let's see. So going into half, New England was only down by 8 points. And I mean, not down by 8 points. They were up by 8 points. So after that initial 87-yard touchdown run for Melvin Gordon in the first quarter, the Chargers just went flat. They weren't able to move the ball. How do you feel about this game? It was actually a pretty good game.
Yeah, I thought it was a great game as well. It was a Los Angeles Chargers game that we've seen this season from them. They either start slow, become hot in the middle of the game and then slow down, or they start off hot, slow down, they come back hot, and that's what happened this week. They had a hot start. Melvin Gordon, I think, took off for the 87-yard run, and shout out to Melvin Gordon. This dude has 526 yards and 4 touchdowns on the season for rushing, 235 yards receiving with 4 touchdowns, and he's having a boss season. He's definitely an MVP caliber player having an MVP caliber season. But it's just the woes this team goes through during the game. It's like a roller coaster ride. They go hot, they get hot, and then they slow down. And I think going against the Patriots, you can't have that because Tom Brady being clutch, and the Patriots having home field advantage that they do, you're going to lose every time.
Yeah, no, the thing that surprised me is just, I as a Broncos fan or just anybody that's not a Patriots fan, we're always critical of what New England does. And New England, it just seems like to me, always gets a pretty simple schedule. But, they do face the AFC West this year, which before the season looked like it was going to be a challenge for them. Like you said, they just excuse me, they started off hot, and they just the Chargers started off hot and just slowed down, and they couldn't really recover from it. It was something that really, they needed to just be consistent, and especially going against one of the league's worst defenses.
Yeah, I thought they were going to come in and just run over that defense because they are a league worst defense. But you look at the possession time in this game, New England has the ball for 36 minutes compared to the Chargers 23 minutes. And that's where New England just dominated this game. You look at the scoring drives too. You have the Chargers coming out, getting the 87-yard touchdown run by Melvin Gordon, and then they're absent for 5 drives, 4 punts, and then they ended the half with the ball. But then in the fourth quarter, they end up scoring again with Travis Benjamin. But you can't have that lull against this New England team because they're always a threat going down the field with Tom Brady as their quarterback.
Yeah, and for me, I'll touch on it yet again. It just seemed like, with all the other AFC West teams in this, it just seemed like they abandoned the run. You got a guy in Melvin Gordon, only touched the ball 16 times. Those 16 times he was over 100 yards easily. So to me, it's kind of perplexing that you let this guy, you minimize his touches and just kind of go elsewhere on offense and I think that was a lot of the reason why they slowed down after that.
Yeah, I think so too. And then Phillip Rivers, he's had a lot of good games these past few weeks. I think going like 8 touchdowns with only 1 interception, and then the numbers he had this past game: 212 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Just a subpar game by his standards, and definitely in the special teams, like Travis Benjamin on that punt return. He muffles the punt and then he turns the other way and then gets a safety, and it was just bad luck for them. And it seemed like the Raiders and them were playing like the same kind of game. They just weren't there, traveling across the country, and I think it affected them, honestly.
Yeah, and one more thing about Phillip Rivers I want to bring up is the guy has 2,028 yards this season. I mean, he's in the top 5 quarterbacks for passing yards this year. So it's not like it's always a Phillip Rivers problem. You do look; they do have a healthy receiving core going on. Obviously, Mike Williams getting on the field, so that's they're pushing him into rotation there. But Keenan Allen's been healthy, but Keenan Allen only has 1 touchdown. So really, their main strength on offense has been what Phillip Rivers can do and what Melvin Gordon can do.
Yeah, I think they rely on Melvin Gordon, because he has, 8 touchdowns on the season compared to all the receivers. I mean, he's the go-to guy, and, Phillip Rivers, he's always going to do him. He's always going to have an incredible game throwing, but it's up to these receivers to, catch the ball, because there was some missed drops in this game, and it sucked watching. Even though I'm not a Chargers fan, I want every team that the Patriots play to beat them. So that sucked, but I want to give a shout out to their defense too, because their defense played well. I think they ended up with 3 sacks and 7 tackles for a loss, and they held the New England Patriots to only 6 points in the second half. But it's just this offense that goes through a roller coaster ride that ends up them losing the game because of it.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at this team, and obviously there's a lot of shoulda, coulda, wouldas here, but you look at what they have done this year, and essentially, I mean, they could have been 1, 2, 3, 4. So I mean, they literally could have won at least 6 of their games this year that they have played, maybe 7. But it's just some stuff. You got Anthony Lynn, who is the first-year coach. So you got a lot of issues to hash out. So that's going to be a tough thing for them going on. But, with the remainder of their schedule, they get off the bye week. They face Jacksonville. Jacksonville just got Marcel Darius, which is ridiculous because they already lead the league in sacks this year. And then they go on to play the Bills after that. They play the Cowboys. They got the Browns, Redskins, Chiefs, Jets, and Raiders. So, I mean, they got a couple games in there that they have some leeway to try to gain some ground. But, there's a couple really tough games in there. So I would honestly say don't count these guys out just quite yet.
No, like you've seen the past 4 weeks, they've won 3 of those and ended up losing against the Patriots. But this team has been in every game except, I believe, for the Chiefs this season. And, this offense is deadly. You've seen it, like Phillip Rivers go off, and it's just a matter if they're going to control this roller coaster and make it more consistent on the highs rather than the lows. But, they get this bye week. They can get over some things, and they go against the Jags, who is surprisingly pretty good this season. Had a leading rusher in Fournette, but I believe he went down on injury. And
yeah, I know he's had like some ankle injuries ever since that Rams game.
Yeah, and so it's going to be a difficult game. And like we've been saying, this AFC West schedule is one of the toughest in the league. So I feel like it's not anybody's division right now. I think the Chiefs have a hold of it, but I think we're looking at those wild card spots the second half, and it's going to be anybody's division with all these 3 teams having 3 wins.
Definitely so. And one last thing, we forgot to mention this in the news earlier, but the Chargers will be getting after they get back off their bye, they'll be getting one of their top linebackers back in Denzel Perryman, who's been on IR for the first half of the season. So that is huge for them. That adds a lot of depth to their linebacking core and just solidifies some more of that interior defense for them.
Oh, yeah, they definitely need his help. I think this defense has been playing well the past few weeks, but with an addition like him, he can, bring some stability to the center of the field in the linebacker position, because you have Joey Bosa, who's been going off. You have Melvin Ingram, who's, those two are like a dynamic duo. And, getting him back and getting this offense off a bye week, maybe this team can make a run and end up being in the playoffs this year.
Yeah, and it's oh man, it's just it's going to be interesting this last half of the season to see if it will be just one team from the AFC West, or if any of the other three teams below the Chiefs are able to recover and snag a wild card spot or two. So we'll go on to our last thing. Before we go on to our picks for players of the week, I want to bring up today really huge news just in the NFL. So Deshaun Watson tore his ACL during practice today. And then you also get the announcement earlier in the day that Andrew Luck will not be playing the rest of the season. So, it's already painful to watch the Colts, and sometimes it's been painful to watch the Texans, with the exception of when Watson came in. How painful is this game going to be for you to watch this week, knowing that it will be, I believe, who's their backup? I know they got –
Who, for the Houston Texans?
Yeah, it's
I think it's Tom Savage, or Savage. Is that his name?
Excuse me. So you got Jacoby Brissett playing for the Colts, and then I don't think it's Tom Savage. I'll have to double check for you really quick. Let me get that. Because I think they actually picked they do have Tom Savage just on the roster. So interestingly enough, I thought it was going to be somebody else. I keep thinking Case Keenum, but he's obviously up in Minnesota. So, that's going to be a tough game to watch. It could go anybody's way now.
Oh, my gosh, yeah. I only know it was Tom Savage because I kind of followed him during the preseason, and that was a big debate I was having. It was like, do you start Deshaun Watson, or you just go comfortable with Tom Savage, who's, been around in the league for a while? But, this game is gonna be tough to watch. I think the Texans are favored 90 to 10%. The Colts have the 10%. But, it's sad to see Deshaun Watson go down because he's, in my opinion, the rookie of the year already. This guy is just a touchdown machine. But it's anybody's game now, like you said, and it's going to be strange to see this Sunday.
Yeah. Oh man, I was just like shocked. I was like, wow, this game just went from let's see what damage Deshaun Watson can do on this depleted Andrew Luck-less Colts team, and now it's like, wow, what can Tom Savage and Brissett do against each other? So it's going to be an interesting game. Could be a better game than we all think. But finally we'll go to our predictions. Who do you believe is going to be your standout offensive player for AFC West games this week?
The standout offensive player this week, I'm going to go with my pick of the week. Pick of the game I've picked for the week is the Chiefs versus the Cowboys, and I'm going to go with Alex Smith. A lot of people are doubting this Chiefs team. That I think they've made themselves one of the best teams in the league by far. But the Dallas Cowboys have the 58% advantage over the 41% Chiefs, and I think Alex Smith is going to go down to Dallas, and he's going to get a few touchdowns, and he's going to lead that team to a victory, an easy victory that is, with help with Kareem Hunt and all that. How about you, Milo?
So I'm actually going to say Demaryius Thomas. The reason why I bring him up is he's the Broncos' leading receiver, but the guy still doesn't have a touchdown this year. That to me, that is unfathomable right there. And so he's due for a touchdown, and I think Brock Osweiler has worked with him before, so that's going to be a target that he's he's going to go after. So, I could see Demaryius maybe having somewhere between 7 and 12 receptions for the game and going for maybe 100 yards and a touchdown.
Wow, I did not fully understand that he didn't have a touchdown. I thought he would at least have a couple, but thinking back on it, he hasn't. He's had a few big plays, and I think it's time for him to get a few touchdowns and maybe upset that Eagles team and bring the Broncos back to this playoff contention.
Yeah, it's crazy to see such a talent like that guy just kind of wasting away, and we could sit here and blame it on Simeon. We could blame it on the offensive line, but altogether, it's just been a really weak offense in Denver. So just to know that, other guys on the roster, such as Jordan Taylor, have more touchdowns than Demaryius Thomas, that's crazy just to think about that.
Oh, yeah, it's insane. And hopefully with the return of Emmanuel Sanders, he opens up the field for Demaryius Thomas to surprise that Eagles defense and how good the Denver Broncos offense can be. But how about your defensive player of the week, Milo? What you got?
Oh, this is a good one. So, it's it's obviously who would I say? I'm gonna have to go with I'll just go with the San Diego defense. I think they're gonna shut down Jay Cutler and the Dolphins, and they'll have 4 or 5 sacks on the guy. They'll have a couple turnovers.
Oh, so, I think
the defense in general.
I think the Chargers are on bye. I think the Raiders are playing the Dolphins.
That's right. The
Raiders.
So, sorry about that to our fans, but, yeah, the Raiders. So, yeah, the Raiders need to shut down the defense or the offense of the Dolphins and just go to town on it, and get in Jay Cutler's head, know that you have no more Jay Ajayi, and just get in that backfield and destroy things.
Yeah, I was thinking the same lines as you. I'm going with Khalil Mack, who, is the reigning defensive player of the year. He's had a somewhat average season, and he hasn't really busted it out, a key game this year. And even with 4.5 sacks on the season, I think he's going to go off with a couple sacks. And hopefully this Raiders defense can, get to the quarterback and pressure this Miami's offense to dominate on the defensive side of the field and have an easy win for Oakland that's coming up Sunday.
Yeah, I think that might be the true win for the AFC West team this week is Oakland down in Miami. One last thing before we let you guys go. Upset alert out there in the Meadowlands. Excuse me for the video sound, but the Jets are up 17-7 right now in the third quarter on the Bills.
Wow, 17-7, and that's crazy, man. The beginning of the season, I don't think the Jets were favored to win one single game. And you look at their season now; they're 3-5, just like most of these teams in the AFC West. And you can never count them out, man. Josh McCown always seems to come back and be effective on a team somehow. And you got to give him credit.
Yeah, consider this last little thought. Josh McCown, he's accounted for both touchdowns. He's thrown a touchdown pass to Anderson, and then he also ran in a touchdown pass. So the guy's just looking really good tonight, and we'll have to see how the rest of the third quarter and the fourth quarter go. But to close things out, this is another episode 8, I believe, of West 'em Up, Armchair All-Americans podcast. My name is Milo, coming from Denver, Colorado.
My name is Cade. Make sure you guys follow us on Twitter. Give us a retweet. Give us a shout out. It's much appreciated. Check out Armchair All-Americans for some awesome articles, and we'll see you guys next week.
All right, have a good one. Enjoy football this Sunday.